This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie.
And each week, we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird.
Weirdos, welcome back to yet again another episode of History for Weirdos with your hosts, me, Andrew, and my beautiful wife, Stephanie.
Hi, that's me.
I know we always introduce ourselves in the very beginning in the little intro, but I just realized that our voices back then were recorded at the end of 2019. So it's been a hot minute since I think we've introduced each other in more of current voices, right?
You can hear how our voices have aged in that time. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's very odd to think about.
It really is. I mean, voices do definitely age. I mean, I think lately for me, it's really apparent with Eminem. So I used to love, well, I still do. I used to love Eminem when I was younger. And you know, listening to the first version of the Guess Who's Back song is very different. His voice is really different than now, which is 20 plus years later.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting however long we do the podcast to see how our voices change and progress over time.
Yeah, I know. Well, there you have it. I guess you have some history of our voices at the beginning of this episode. Well, anyways, I don't think we have any announcements. So, Steph, let's just get right into the episode, right? This is episode number 2 of our Historical Mysteries July.
Yes, I'm really excited for this one. I think this episode's going to be a long one. So bear with me because my medication makes my mouth dry. So I may need to take breaks.
I think that's okay.
Was that TMI for the audience? Yes. Do I regret it? No.
Yeah, we like giving you guys little behind the scenes looks every once in a while.
Yeah. So we are going to start off in March 1917. A revolution breaks out on the streets of Petrograd, which is today St. Petersburg, and Tsar Nicholas II is forced to abdicate the throne later that month. That same November, the radical socialist Bolsheviks, led by some guy named Vladimir Lenin,
I think I've heard of him.
They seize power in Russia. Today, we're going to be talking about Anastasia. She's our main character for the subject. She is, for today's episode, she's the youngest daughter of Tsar Nicholas, who, along with her entire family, spoiler, will be killed by the Bolsheviks throughout this story.
Wow. So I was at first smiling because Anastasia, the Disney movie, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It's not the Disney character. It is the Disney character, right? I'm sure you'll get into that a little bit.
It's not a Disney movie. It's just an animated movie.
Oh, was it really not Disney?
No, it's not Disney.
Oh, wow. I just always assumed it was.
Yeah, because of the princess vibes. But it's not a Disney movie. And yes, that is the same Anastasia that you're thinking of. I will get into the movie a little bit later.
Okay, fair enough.
But the deaths of the Romanov family essentially mark the end of the Romanov dynasty, which had ruled Russia for over 300 years. And ultimately, it ends Imperial Russia altogether.
Right. I mean, that's what centuries of Tsarist rule, right?
Yes.
Going back to like, I don't know, Ivan the Terrible, I'm guessing, maybe even before that.
Yeah. Well, after the family is killed, rumors almost immediately start circulating that Anastasia and her brother, actually, who is technically the heir to the Romanov dynasty, somehow survived. And those rumors take on a life of their own, and it leads to this big mystery that we're going to be addressing today. People have been asking this question for over 100 years now. What happened to Anastasia Romanov?
Oh man, I really hope she survived. Like the hopefulness in me, the optimist, and that's probably the better term, really wants her to survive. But the realist in me is like,
yeah, we're gonna get into it. I promise there is a trigger warning at some point during this episode, and I will give it to you. So if anyone needs to just briefly fast forward, you can. But
okay.
There's only one instance where it gets a little too intense.
Okay, fair enough.
So we are going to dive into the Romanov family and their fate. So as I mentioned, they're the last imperial dynasty. The Romanovs rule more or less from 1613 until 1917. Mm-hmm. They played a really significant role in Russia's culture. Like a lot of what we think of Russian culture comes from this family. Mm. So while the Romanovs were seen as really modernizing Russia, it's not all good, obviously, because a revolution comes.
Right.
Their rule is also marked by a lot of economic challenges and a lot of social unrest. I'm not going to get into the details, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad for the average person. So just to recap, in February 1917, that's when Tsar Nicholas II abdicates under pressure from the revolutionaries. Unfortunately, the sort of provincial government that followed that sucked. It couldn't address the mounting problems.
Right.
And I just wanted to share that. Again, I'm not going to go into the details, but just to paint the backdrop of Russia at this point is just turmoil. Utter turmoil. It's not a smooth revolution by any means.
Right. And they're still kind of like in the midst of World War I.
Yeah. It's really sad. It's a pretty devastating situation. Mm-hmm. So then we go to October 1917, where the Bolsheviks, again, led by Lenin, they seize power. Everything collapses to a full-scale civil war. And the Romanovs are held captive. They're held captive by the team known as the Reds.
The team?
You could say.
Yeah, they're like the radical socialists. They're the communists.
Yes.
They're the Marxist-Leninists.
And the Reds had been negotiating for the exchange of the Romanov family with the anti-Bolshevik side, Team Whites.
Yeah, that's where you have the Red Russians and the White Russians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But obviously the two sides don't get along, so talks stall.
They do not get along, that is true.
They don't like each other. Bolshevik sources actually will later reveal that Vladimir Lenin initially planned to put the imperial family on trial with basically like fake evidence of crimes that they committed.
Like a show trial.
Mm-hmm. To find them guilty and then imprison them all for life. That was his big plan. Unfortunately, this other guy, Leon Trotsky, I think you've heard of him.
I've heard of him as well.
He didn't believe this would work because rumors were circulating not just throughout Russia, but throughout Europe of rescuing this family.
Yes. And we see that like he sends a plea to England, right?
He does. Tsar Nicholas does. And you'll see a lot of sad stuff happens here. And I know what you're thinking of. That's why my thoughts split. They cover this from the British side in The Crown.
Yes, they do.
Obviously, amazing show, but the way they handled this situation, I thought was super impactful. I loved it. I loved seeing this different perspective. It made it sadder somehow. So I highly recommend watching those episodes. So because they don't want the family to be rescued, because then they kind of represent this symbol of imperialism, they come up with a different plan. On the night of July 16th, at this point 1918, The Bolshevik secret police group, they wake up Tsar Nicholas II and his wife, Alexandra, and their 5 children in the middle of the night. They order them to get dressed and to gather their belongings. The Romanovs are then told that they are being moved to a new location. Once the family found themselves huddled in the basement of the home where they had been held captive all this time, the following execution order was read aloud to them. Nikolai Alexandrovich, because your relatives are continuing their attack on Soviet Russia, the Ural Executive Committee has decided to execute you.
So even if that was true, right? Like it was just some BS, even according to their own BS, that's just one person. That's not a whole family.
That's a really good point. So here's the trigger warning. The ensuing gunfire caused the room to fill with smoke, and the windows are opened to let the smoke clear. That's when the firing squad realizes that the family isn't fully dead yet.
Oh my God.
It turns out that the girls, because there's 5 of them, had sewn jewels into their clothing. We don't know if it's for safekeeping or for protection or sentimental value, but they had sewn in a lot of jewels. And it looks like the bullets weren't able to penetrate because of this. And so it only delays their terrible deaths. The firing squad fears that the commotion of a bunch of guns going off is going to draw too much attention. So the men stop firing and are instead ordered to use their bayonets and the butts of their guns to kill any of the wounded family members that are still alive.
That's like pure evil.
It's a really haunting scene. In a mere 20 minutes, the entire family has been brutally killed, and they're already being loaded onto a truck that was waiting outside the house to dispose of them.
You know, and that's the danger of radical ideologies, right? Like communism, is you can justify, oh yeah, killing a little girl is for the greater good. Like, no, it's not. It's absolutely not. 5
little girls and a little boy.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So the trigger warning's done. That's the worst of it in terms of graphic information. So one of the men in the firing squad, he owns land nearby, and that's where they initially dumped the remains. But then a few days later, I'm guessing these guys are freaking out because they just killed a whole family.
Yeah.
And they get antsy and they're like, let's move them. And they move the remains again. They're reburied elsewhere, and that location is sort of lost to time. But we will get back to it.
Oh, okay.
The bodies will rest in this second location for almost a century before they are found.
Wow, that's nuts. That's actually insane.
So now that we have that sort of tragic backstory, I am going to get into Anastasia, the rumors of her survival, and the people that claimed to be her.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's go.
So Grand Duchess Anastasia Nikolaevna Romanov was born on June 18th, 1901. She was the daughter of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and his wife, Tsarina. That's such a cute word.
It is a really cute word.
Tsarina Alexandra. Anastasia was the youngest girl. And then she's followed by her younger brother, Alexei. And he's the heir because he's a boy, right? That's just how it works. Her sisters include Duchess Olga, Maria, and Tatiana. Her mother, the Empress, is their teacher at first when they're all little. She teaches them how to spell and how to pray and little things like that. So they're kind of homeschooled for a while. And then when the kids get old enough, this would have happened for Anastasia too, they're given a private tutor.
Oh, very cool.
Apparently from Switzerland specifically. So this woman, Anna Vyorbova, I'm so sorry for butchering these Russian names.
I mean, Russian is not an easy language.
It's badass, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She's a close friend of the Romanov family, and she's the lady in waiting to the Tsarina.
Okay.
She was later quoted as describing Anastasia as a sharp and clever child who liked to play practical jokes on her siblings.
Aww.
Isn't that sweet?
That's really cute.
Very sweet, very innocent.
It's true.
So in the years following the Romanov family's execution, conspiracy theories pretty much immediately begin to emerge that little Anastasia had somehow escaped captivity and survived.
Let's go.
The rumors often include her brother Alexei as well, who's the heir.
Okay.
And I wonder if it's because they're the two youngest that people kind of associated them together. And I don't have a clear answer as to why. Historically, we tend to remember the theory that Anastasia lived, but not Alexei.
Right. Like, no, it was only Anastasia.
Prior to this, I had no idea that people thought he had survived as well.
Wow. And do we have any idea where these rumors originate from? Or
No.
any, like, not even any, like, hunches?
No.
Just, who knows? Maybe from the White Russians, I'm guessing.
I assume. Yeah, it could be political move, propaganda, something to give people hope.
Yeah.
Who knows? But starting in 1920, numerous women claimed to be the Grand Duchess Anastasia.
Okay.
We're going to get into a few of those.
I don't know why I'm excited.
One of them is named Eugenia Smith, and she wrote memoirs about her life as Anastasia.
Oh my gosh.
They include lengthy descriptions about how she escaped her captors. Pretty much that one, there's so many holes in her story. No one really lashes on to her story, but she, for the rest of her life, claims that that's true. Another woman named Nadezhda Vasilievna, son of a nutcracker, surfaced in Siberia and is imprisoned actually by Bolshevik authorities, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do not say that you're Anastasia and then like be susceptible to being captured by the Bolsheviks. Like, what are you doing?
Actually, I don't believe she had made those claims prior to being captured. We just know that in Siberia, for some reason, she's arrested and captured. And then in 1934, they move her to a prison hospital in Kazan because they believe she has a mental illness. She then, from there, starts announcing that she's Princess Anastasia.
I see.
And she writes letters in both French and German, which is really impressive, to King George V of the United Kingdom, asking him to help her, his cousin, out and get her out of this hospital prison, which is wild.
That's ballsy. I'll give her that.
Yeah. At one point, she does change her story. Maybe she gets in some hot water with the Bolsheviks and she's like, actually, I'm just the daughter of a merchant. I'm not the Grand Duchess. But then later on, she's like, no, I was kidding. I really am.
JK lol.
Anastasia. This woman will eventually pass away in an asylum in 1971.
So she was a little cuckoo bananas.
Yeah, that may be more likely what was going on with her. At least 10 women in total claim to be Anastasia.
Oh my God.
Offering various stories about how they survived. Books and movies really perpetuated this narrative. Notably, there is the 1956 film called Anastasia, starring Ingrid Bergman.
Ingrid Bergman. I like her.
I love her. I didn't know that she ever played Anastasia.
I didn't know that either.
And then much later in time, there is an animated film.
Let's go. Let's go. This is what I've been waiting for.
It's also called Anastasia, and it's released in 1997, although the film is meant to be set in 1926, right?
Yeah, and I remember the historical accuracy of that movie is like absurd.
It's pretty spot on.
By spot on, you mean like completely wrong.
I would write my history papers off of that.
Fair enough. But I do love that movie. I don't even care.
This movie is actually what first sparked my fascination with Anastasia and the Romanovs in general. And I'm almost positive most millennials can relate to that.
100%.
I was like fascinated. How could you lose a princess? Basically, how do you lose track of royalty? And I say princess and Grand Duchess The translation in Russian is more equivalent to Grand Duchess in English.
Okay.
But a lot of people just call her princess because that's basically what she was.
She was the daughter of the Tsar. So.
Yeah.
And Tsar comes from Caesar, by the way.
I was waiting for that.
I had to say it. I knew you knew this, but I was like, for the weirdos, I have to say it. Yeah, Tsar comes from Caesar.
Thank you, love.
Yeah.
So Tsarina would be Caesarina?
Caesarina, yeah.
Very cute. I love it. How much do you remember that movie?
I remember that they had the main bad guy being Rasputin.
Yeah. Rasputin. Yeah. He's not even in this story.
No, because
he has nothing to do with their disappearance.
Yeah, he's already dead by that point.
He's off. People were really upset thinking he was sleeping with the Tsarina, so he had to go off and be a monk in Siberia or something.
I thought he was killed, wasn't he?
He's eventually killed, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good times.
Good times. Okay, moving on. On February 20th, 1920, police rescue an unidentified young woman who jumped into a Berlin canal. So we're in Berlin now, attempting to take her own life. When they rescue her, she refuses to give her name. She actually doesn't speak at all.
Oh, wow.
And she's moved into an asylum and is just given the name Miss Unknown.
Miss Unknown, okay.
It takes her 6 months before she talks at all. And then after 2 years in the asylum, the young woman reveals to the nurses that she is in fact the Grand Duchess Anastasia.
Because of course.
When people come to visit her, she often hides. She's very shy, so it doesn't seem like she wants attention necessarily. She's very skittish, I should say. One time, hearing of this woman claiming to be Anastasia, the former guard of Anastasia's grandmother, the Dowager Empress, so her bodyguard, shows up and he shows her family photos of the Romanovs. This woman becomes very visibly upset. She cries, like she's really triggered, for lack of a better word. And they're asking her, what's wrong? And she says, that man has pictures of my grandmother. Which is interesting, right?
Wow, okay.
He just shows her the pictures, like, do you know who these people are, kind of thing. And she just starts crying, like, that's my grandmother. She's eventually released from the asylum. And we are going to call her Anna. She is known later on throughout this story as Anna Anderson.
Anna Anderson, okay.
She is the most famous person to claim to be Grand Duchess Anastasia.
Okay.
But to keep things clear, I'll call her Anna.
Anna, short for Anastasia.
Exactly. I see what she did there.
I know, that's smart.
So because of her claim, she actually gets to stay with family friends of the Romanovs once she's released, because some people think she's legit, that she looks just like the Grand Duchess and that must be her. So a longtime friend of the Romanovs named Zina Tolstoy, no idea if they're related to the other Tolstoy, but that's pretty cool. She visits Anna while Anna is living with the Baron and Baroness von Kleist.
Von Kleist?
She went from an asylum to staying with the Baron and the Baroness.
Wow, that's moving on up in the world.
So Tolstoy goes to visit, and while talking to her, she's like, let me play a song while we're here. And she knew, because she's a family friend of the Romanovs, that this song was a song that the kids often danced to. Apparently the family was really close. I think this is kind of a tangent, but I think part of why they pull at our heartstrings so much is because Nicholas was known to be such an involved parent.
Wow, that's super rare.
Yeah. They were both, like, they just seemed like a real family, for lack of a better word. Most royal families grow up very separate. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of like sweet intimacy between them. And one of those things was the kids would always dance to this song. So this woman, Zina Tolstoy, plays the song, and Anna collapses into tears hearing it and saying she remembers that song from her past.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, right?
That's some compelling, like, evidence, I guess, to say.
Yeah. Not all reunions, however, for Anna Anderson are happy ones. For example, the first officer that is charged with figuring out if she's legit or not, his name is Inspector Franz Grunberg.
Franz Grunberg, yeah.
He's like, hey, Anna, I'm just trying to figure out like who you are. Why don't you come over to my house for dinner and just like hang out? That seems very odd to me, but that's how he went about his investigation.
I have no words, honestly.
What he doesn't tell her is that he has also invited Princess Irene of Prussia to dinner.
Wow, that's pretty casual.
No big deal.
No big deal at all. Yeah. You know what? I'll invite some friends. Oh yeah, by the way, I'll also invite this like princess, whatever.
The Prussian princess.
Yeah.
The reason he invites Princess Irene is because she is Anastasia Romanov's biological aunt.
Oh wow.
He wants to see if Anna will recognize her. So he does not tell Anna who Princess Irene is. She just presents as like another dinner guest. Like, oh yeah, these are some of my friends, blah, blah, blah. They're also here for dinner.
Smart.
Anna doesn't know who she is.
Boom. I knew there was going to be something.
It doesn't click. So then the two women, I guess Princess Irene says something and they get into a fight. Anna leaves the dinner upset and she tells the police officer, the investigator, that he was trying to trick her and kind of like she's in a vulnerable situation. She may not recognize an aunt that she hasn't seen in years.
Sounds something like a grifter would say.
Very interesting, right?
Yeah.
So Princess Irene isn't alone in claiming that Anna Anderson is full of BS. Other people close to the Romanov family, including her Anastasia's childhood tutor, that Swiss tutor we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And her nursemaid also see Anna Anderson and say that's not her. That's not the princess. 7 years go by.
Okay. And the gig is still up, right?
Oh, yeah. She maintains, I am the Grand Duchess Anastasia. She then meets a man named Gleb Botkin.
His first name is Gleb, like Gleb.
Gleb.
That is such an unfortunate name.
Gleb Botkin. That's not a great name.
The name's Botkin here. Gleb Botkin.
Sounds like a type of fruit fly or something. It's a very odd name.
Yeah, it does. Weird.
But Gleb is the son of Dr. Botkin, who was the family's physician.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's go.
He's killed with the Romanovs that same night. They had a couple of like their employees with them, I guess, when they were kidnapped, and he's one of them. So Gleb and Anastasia grew up together because, my dad's their doctor, so I'm always hanging around them too.
Right.
He meets Anna Anderson, and she is able to recollect moments from their childhood that he says only Anastasia would know about. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. No complicated bills, no hidden fees or upcharges. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan's jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/HFW. That's mintmobile.com/HFW, as in History for Weirdos. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/HFW. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional fees, taxes, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage all the way to the "we just hit 1 million orders" stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Isn't that interesting?
Okay, well, that's certainly something. That's not nothing.
He's convinced this is Anastasia. In fact, he is so convinced that he gets her a lawyer to help her prove it.
You know what's so funny is like there's all this back and forth right now, right? In 1928 at this point.
Yes.
If it was present day, it's like, okay, DNA test, let's go.
Spit in this little tube.
Yeah, spit in this tube. We'll give you results. Yeah, we'll give you results in about 10 days.
I know they have no way of knowing. I was thinking about that while writing this episode. Like, damn, you could get away with a lot back in the day.
I know, you really could. You know what's kind of funny too? I saw this whole article that basically like half the situations in Seinfeld like wouldn't be applicable today.
Because of cell phones?
Yeah, just because of cell phones and like texting.
That's so true.
GPS.
I didn't think we'd be talking about Seinfeld during our Anastasia Romanov episode, but that's really impressive.
Yeah, and that's what you get with History for Weirdos, baby.
Exactly. So the reason Gleb helps Anna get a lawyer is because the Romanov estate is set to be released to the closest living relatives.
Oh, okay. Well, why would the Bolsheviks allow that, first of all?
I don't know. I didn't look into that. That's their business, not mine.
I thought they would just take it.
You know what I imagine, actually, now that you bring that up? I imagine it's their estate abroad.
Oh, you're totally right. They have possessions outside of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. What I think this is, because this whole time we're still in Germany.
Yeah, good point.
So he hires an attorney from New York City, because that's
New York City.
That's where the top lawyers are, to represent Anna and help her establish her identity as the Duchess and rightful heir. So the authorities have to investigate this claim.
Of course they
right?
do.
They're like, we're not just going to give you all of these holdings and money. That's weird.
Yeah.
So several investigations are conducted. For example, they have a person, a man who later like analyzes Anne Frank's diary, like fun fact. But before that, he analyzes the handwriting of Grand Duchess Anastasia and the handwriting of Anna Anderson, and he concludes that the handwriting is identical.
But isn't that kind of like a BS science, like phrenology?
I don't know how much of a science handwriting analysis is, to be fair. But if it were, let's assume it's accurate. Is there another issue that you see here with the comparison? I mean, I'm just still stuck on like that. I feel like it's complete BS, but no. For me, what stood out was Anastasia was a little girl when she went missing. This woman is a grown woman. Why is their handwriting identical? That's more suspicious to me.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that. I mean, now that I think about it, like I remember I saw like a document that I had signed when I first opened up a bank account, like when I was 18 years old, right? So I was a barely legal adult. I looked at the signature versus like what my signature is today, and it was completely different.
Exactly.
You're totally right.
Yeah. That would be weird, but they take that as a clue that it's her. Then they have medical doctors examine her.
Because of course, right?
Because they can see that. But the doctors say that there are physical markers that support that this could be the same person. I guess what they're trying to do, the doctors, is what we have computers do now, which is they're trying to see, would this skeleton have aged to look like this adult person? You know, when they give you, and by you, I mean scientists, a picture of a missing child.
Yes.
And then they have the computer rendering of what they look like. You know, they went missing 10 years ago. This is what they would look like today. That's what I imagine the doctors were there for. But I'm not certain. I don't know if they knew what they were doing, to be honest. But the doctors do conclude, yes, there's a lot of physical similarities between the two. Yeah, to the point where a man named Dr. Otto Reich concludes that the resemblance between Anastasia and Anna Anderson's faces is, quote, too similar to be mere coincidence.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is really interesting. It's kind of like ping pong. It's going back and forth right now. Like there's some evidence like, oh, wow, Anna Anderson is Anastasia. And then there's some evidence that, wow, she's definitely not at all. But it seems like there's more that she is, which is really, really interesting because my gut is like, this is BS.
I like hearing your thought process as we go through this journey because you're right. It is like a game of ping pong. That's a really good way of putting it. Lastly, they have Dr. Lothar Nobel, a well-known psychologist, assess her to see like, is this person lying? Are they mentally sound? He reports that she appears mentally sound and he notes no issues with her memory and he does not think that she's lying.
This is really interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Independent investigations to counter that she's Anastasia are also happening.
Okay.
So the first ones that I mentioned, they're supposed to be not biased at all.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a private investigation that is biased in that it has the agenda of assuming she's lying.
Right.
So these investigators say that they're able to trace this woman, Anna, back to a Polish factory worker who had gone missing years prior named, and if I was bad at the Russian names, I'm going to be worse at the Polish ones. I'm so sorry. Franziska Shandzokowska.
Sounds good enough to me.
Thanks. Right. So they think this lady went missing. We traced it. This is actually the same lady. But then it's revealed that this bias investigation is being paid for by Anastasia Romanov's uncle, the Grand Duke of Hesse, so a German duke, to prove that it's not her. Then people are like, is the evidence too biased? Did they just make this up?
Right. There's clear agenda there.
Exactly. And to make this strange situation, this Anna Anderson, Anastasia situation even weirder, Hitler gets involved.
Wow. Hitler will be involved in our very first mini-sode, by the way, available to Patreon members.
Ooh, that was a good plug.
Just a little plug. Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be coming out within the next couple weeks.
I think having Adolf Hitler involved in this story makes it that much weirder.
It does. I'm not going to lie. It really does.
Because that's not what I was expecting at all. But, okay, bear with me for a second.
Oh my God. All this stuff's going down and then Hitler.
It's like, what are you doing here? Get out. This is confusing enough. But do you remember when Twilight actors Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart broke up?
It broke my heart.
Yeah. You know who else's heart it broke?
Hitler's.
Close. Donald Trump.
I do remember that. Yes. Oh my God. He commented on it.
Donald Trump was really invested.
He was.
In this relationship. He was tweeting about it. He was tweeting at them. That's the same energy that I'm interpreting from Adolf Hitler, because apparently he was like, you guys, we have to know, is it really her? Wait, I'm at the edge of my seat. Let's figure this out. So he arranges to contribute to this investigation, right? He's invested in the mystery just like the rest of us. He wants answers. So Nazi officials arrange for Anna Anderson to meet with the Polish family, the Shandzokowska family, to see if they can identify her as this missing Polish woman.
Okay. Wow. I did not think Nazis would be getting involved in this episode.
They're like, we're going to set up the meeting. You guys tell us what you think. If the family, the Polish family, said, oh yeah, that's our relative, that's our daughter or granddaughter, niece, whatever it is, Hitler was going to be pissed. So he said, if she turns out to be a phony, have her arrested. Because he really wanted it to be Princess Anastasia. So when the two parties meet, the Polish family is aware of this threat that he's made. And they say, the most they say is that, she does resemble our relative, but they refuse to sign anything claiming that they know for sure who she is. Homie move, right?
That's a homie move, yeah. That's a big time homie move.
What's so dumb about having that information out there is that if it is her biological family, they obviously don't want her to get arrested by Nazis.
Right, exactly.
So they're going to be like, I don't know. I don't think so. So.
Yeah, there's not really a situation where they say, yes, that's her.
Mm-hmm. No. They're like, oh, they look similar, but we don't know. We don't know for sure. So in 1970, the German...
Oh, wow. So this is past World War II. We're getting deep in here. In this timeline.
The timeline's going to go everywhere. I'm just warning you. In 1970, the German Supreme Court finally rules on the matter that Anna Anderson was neither proven to be Anastasia, nor had she been proven not to be Anastasia.
They just went full Shakespeare right there. To be or not to be? That is the question.
In 1970.
So they basically, okay, this is 25 years also after Hitler dies and World War II ends. And they still are like, yeah, we don't know.
We really want to know, but we still don't know. So the riddle remains at this point. I didn't think I'd be laughing this much. During the
Anastasia episode, no, I did not think I was going to be laughing either. And I also did not think Hitler would be involved.
But even reading it, like I was kind of just trying to make sense of everything in my head, but reading it aloud to you, I hear the absurdity so much more.
Yeah.
So in a 1978 interview, Anna Anderson is asked about this. Like, can you prove that you're actually Anastasia? And this is her answer. How shall I tell you who I am? In which way? Can you tell me that? Can you really prove to me who you are? You believe it or you don't believe it. It doesn't matter. And by it, she means believe her story.
Wow, that sounds like something that like a character in a video game would tell the main character. Like in a really like esoteric kind of video game. Maybe like a Zelda, Legend of Zelda.
Like when Link's looking for clues.
Oh my God.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Is that not what Link does?
I mean, I guess like kind of sometimes.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, it's too complicated. We're not going to get into it.
We're not going to get into Zelda during this episode.
Definitely not.
So Anna Anderson dies in 1984 due to complications from pneumonia. At the time of her death, she's living in the United States and she's married to a man who fully believes that she's Anastasia, and he actually calls her Anastasia.
Oh my God.
We are putting a pin in Anna Anderson.
Yeah, because she's dead.
We will come back to her.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Okay.
I'm holding you to it.
Yeah. We have to pivot now.
Pivot.
We're again in the 1970s.
Okay.
An amateur archaeologist uncovers a shallow grave in the 1970s that holds the remains of 6 adults and 3 children.
And let me guess, it's very close to the manor or like castle or whatever where the Romanovs were last held alive.
It definitely wasn't a manor or a castle. It was more like a hut or a shack.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oof.
So we know that happened in the 70s, but it isn't until the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, after Anna Anderson's already dead, that these findings, this amateur archaeologist findings, are made public.
Oh my God.
Okay.
So, okay, yeah. I mean, that makes so much sense. There's no way the Soviet authorities would allow that to be released to the public.
Exactly. Forensics are able to establish the identity of these 9 sets of remains belonging to the Romanovs and their servants. It appeared that at least 2 members from the Romanov family are missing. Could one of them be Anastasia?
And going back to the very beginning, you said it was Anastasia and Alexei, right? And there's 2 children missing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, this new information sparks a new interest in the mystery of Anastasia and in like, oh my God, so was Anna Anderson lying? So people are reinvested in the story.
Right.
I did say that the remains are identified as Romanovs, but there is quite a journey to get there. And I'm going to go into that journey of how they were able to identify these remains.
Nice.
So teams of experts from Russia, the US, woohoo, and even Germany, Because of course we're there.
Yeah. Pax Americana, man. Let's go.
No one probably invited us. We probably just showed up and we're like, our scientists are better.
This is ours now.
Yes. So Russia, US, and Germany, because Germany's invested because of Anna Anderson.
And because of Hitler.
They all examine the remains to try and determine the identities, right? Papers are written. Papers are then published. They're peer reviewed. And parties from all sides, this includes like Russian scientists, American scientists, Russian nobility, and the media from all over the world are really invested in this investigation. And it all comes down to one man. Can you guess who it is?
Donald Trump?
No. That's a really good guess. Prince Philip.
Prince Philip. Oh, like
Queen Elizabeth's husband.
Whoa.
Remember the crown?
Yes, of course.
We mentioned it earlier in the episode. It comes back to the crown where they cover this in that Romanov episode. They approach this like gaggle of scientists, international scientists, approach Buckingham Palace and they're like, hey, could we get a little sample of Prince Philip's DNA, please?
That's so insane.
Why, you ask? Because Prince Philip is the descendant of Empress Alexandra's sister.
Yes. So they'd have some familial like DNA.
Yes. They'd be able to compare the DNA. The crown agrees. The
Nice.
queen gives her permission to have them take her husband's DNA. It's all obviously actually up to the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And they're given a blood sample for testing. The testing provides indisputable evidence that the adult female remains and the children are all related to Prince Philip.
Oh my God.
It confirms their identities. Testing is more difficult for the Tsar, but after searching for some ways to compare his DNA, they are able to identify that it's him because they know that in his family tree, he has a rare genetic mutation called heteroplasmy.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it does anything to you physically, and it's not that he was sick. It's just a weird genetic mutation, and the male's remains have that genetic mutation.
Okay.
So they're able to say, okay, it's this Tsarina and this adult man that was the same age with this genetic mutation. It's him, and they know the children for sure. In July 1993, the media are told that there is a 98.5% certainty that the bodies, that's very specific, that the bodies had been recovered. The bodies recovered had been those of the Tsar and his family.
I mean, that's a pretty high probability.
Yeah.
I'd bet on that.
They are still missing 2 remains.
2 children. Alexei and Anastasia.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But it gets complicated. Speaking of DNA, let's go back to Anna Anderson.
Finally.
I told you she'd come back.
Oh, yeah.
DNA testing at this point, also because they're like, is the other kid Anastasia? We got to know. So they get a sample of Anna Anderson's intestine.
Oh, my God.
And blood from a surgery that she had had.
Whoa.
Like a procedure, a medical procedure. They have access to it. I don't know how. Don't ask me.
Yeah.
And they compare it to Prince Philip's DNA, right? Because they should show up as a familial match. The findings concluded that Anna Anderson is not the Grand Duchess Anastasia.
The way you said that sounded like, what was it? Like the Maury
like
show?
Maury,
Yeah.
you are not the father.
Yeah. And the dude gets up and does his dance. Oh my God. That's exactly what it sounded like.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, there's no way.
Maury must live off a high if he gets to provide those DNA results all the time, because that was thrilling for me.
Yeah.
Through just looking at her DNA, because you can tell, like when you watch Bones, you see this, you could tell like where a person was from, where they grew up, what environment they would have grown up in. She's Polish. So they believe it's Franziska Szankowska, the missing Polish factory worker.
Like it could be, but
it could be another Polish woman.
But like definitely Polish, not Russian.
Yeah. I think it's her. I think it's the missing factory worker. And I think that's why the family said, like, we don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because why would they do that homie move?
Yeah. Because they can't say, yeah, that's her. She's going to get arrested.
Right.
So you'd rather have your relative, I guess, living as a fraud than living under Nazi surveillance.
Exactly.
It's a pretty sad story any way you look at it. Because she had the history of being in the mental asylum, I guess the optimist in me likes to think that it was a delusion.
Right.
And that it wasn't nefarious, that she wasn't trying to just be a grifter and like con everybody. But that obviously is a possibility.
Yeah. No, it definitely is a possibility.
We don't know. Only she knows.
Wow. Okay.
There's a lot of disappointing things coming, just so in case you were wondering.
Great.
Yay! So in July of 2007,
2007, okay.
nearly 90 years to the day after the family was killed, 2 small skeletons are found.
Oh my God. I knew this was coming and I'm still like, no.
In a totally separate grave, but kind of in the same region.
Right.
DNA positively identifies the smaller of the 2 remains as Alexei, the little boy. And this is what I don't understand. I kid you not. Felicia, if you're listening, our researcher, maybe she can provide clarity because I read the research she provided. I looked this up myself. We don't know if the little girl's Anastasia still. They're like, ooh, that could be Anastasia, or it could be her sister Maria. And the other little girl from the first grave that we thought was Maria, maybe that's Anastasia. How can they not tell by the age?
Yeah, were they that close?
Oh, maybe. Maybe they were that close in age that it's like, wow, the remains would look the same.
Yeah, and they've probably been degraded for so long that it's hard to conclusively say.
Uncertain if Maria, her elder sister, is the child that's buried with the parents and Anastasia's buried with Alexei, or if Anastasia's buried with the parents and Maria's buried with Alexei.
But regardless, either way, like Anastasia's dead. Like she died as a little girl.
Yeah.
She died in that basement.
She died in that basement with her parents and her siblings.
Oh, that's such a buzzkill. Like I know this was coming. I know it was coming, and it's still such a buzzkill.
And a lot of people are really heartbroken by the fact that we can't, at this point, truly identify each individual little girl. Like that they're just like kind of nameless, almost like you could be Anastasia or you could be Maria. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that doesn't feel satisfying either.
It doesn't. No.
People want to say like, this is this person, this is that person, because I think it feels more honoring them and it paints a clearer picture of what may have happened. And it would be really important clue to understand, why are these 2 kids separate?
Right.
We don't know. We may never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way those Soviets like kept documents on that. They wanted that gone.
Yeah, and what they did with the remains of the children they killed? No. I think that one's probably Anastasia because they're the 2 youngest.
Yeah.
So I just have a feeling that they were grouped together.
Maybe, one of the Soviet soldiers like saw what they did and were like mortified. I mean, I anyone with like at least some conscience, like there's no way that you wouldn't feel like the biggest piece of garbage like on the planet.
I left this out of the notes. I wasn't going to tell you, but there's another grave that's found close to these little ones. It's their dog.
Oh, no.
They killed their dog too.
Yeah. Like communists are the worst. They're the worst.
And that's the end of this episode.
Yeah.
So it's just honestly a very tragic story, as we can all tell. So while the rest of the family that was found in that initial grave is resting in St. Petersburg, these last Romanov children are being held in storage by the Russian Orthodox Church, which claims that the DNA evidence is false and these new remains are not royal children. They argue that the Russian government is lying and they made it up.
Yeah, I don't think the post-Soviet Russian government would lie, and neither would the American government. Like, there's no reason for them to at this point.
Yeah, so then that leaves with as an outsider, I guess as a foreigner, that left me with the big question, why would the church take that stance? That's really random. I did some more digging. The Romanovs were canonized by the Orthodox Church in the year 2000.
Oh, okay. That makes sense then.
If it's similar to Catholicism, that makes their bones holy relics.
Yeah, like literal relics. Yeah.
Yes. So the church may be weary or just odd about claiming, oh yeah, these remains are also relics.
Yeah.
It may be because of that, because of the sanctity in which the remains would have to be managed.
Right.
I don't agree with this. I think they should let the family rest together.
Right. I agree too.
But that's the current situation. The story of Anastasia is one of enduring mystery. And a lot of historical significance. Books and movies obviously amplified our fascination with this historical figure. She's captivated the public's imagination for 100 years, over 100 years. And sadly, even with all the answers that we do have, there still are questions.
Right.
That we may never get answers to, which speaks to the complexity of the Romanov family's legacy.
Oh, beautifully said.
Oh, thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. That was incredible. And that was a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah. I really appreciate Felicia, our researcher, for the research she did. She noted, which makes sense, like you pointed this out too, but that the murders occur obviously as the Communist Party gets control. But it's interesting that the discovery of the remains kind of aligns with the Soviet Union starting to end. And then once it's officially gone, we're able to get some resolution.
Right.
It makes sense. It kind of feels like poetic justice in a way.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit poetic justice.
And there were a lot of really good sources for this. We are going to have the sources listed in the show notes, but that is the very long episode on the story of Anastasia Romanov.
Well, again, it was beautifully said. And, it's also nice this time around that we at least have some closure, right? On like the actual mystery. Whereas like last time with Alexander's body, we don't know.
Yeah.
For certain.
We know her remains have been found.
Right.
For certain. We don't know what, I think, like I said, it's the second set. We don't know what led to that situation. And we can't positively name the little girls, but we know it's one of two skeletons, and regardless, the result was the same. Exactly. Yeah. And it's crazy because we didn't know for so long. Like the world did not know until 2007. Still, in the grand scheme of things, very recent. Right. I was in high school. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Oh, I was in high school. Yeah. While that discovery is being made. Yeah, exactly. Even though now I've had via myself and Felicia extensive research in this subject, I still don't feel satisfied. I still want to know more. I thought that doing this episode would scratch the itch that started in 1997 and yet it has not. I want to know so much more. What are you still curious about? I get really curious about little details that may not be episode worthy. I want to know more about their relationships with each other. Right. I want to know more about the kids and what the Tsar and Tsarina's relationship was like. Those things really make me curious. Mm-hmm. Because I understand that the institution that they represented was so harmful to so many people. But at the end of the day, I just feel so much for this family that has to die together.
Right. That's so unbelievably true, actually.
Yeah.
You know, now that you mention it, I do want to know, like, who actually, like, signed the order, right, to have this happen? Like, who was, like, obviously the soldiers on scene,
Probably
they were
Trotsky.
That's what I'm thinking too. Is like, what was it, an official order? Was it like, hey, by the way, make them disappear, wink, wink?
Yeah, you're right. Or was it that, like, whoever's in charge of the house where they're being held captive, like, kind of freaked out and was like, oh, we got to just do this now?
Right, exactly, because this seems like it was also against Lenin's wishes, which is like, you're in direct defiance of Lenin, which is not, you know.
At least his initial wishes, we know. His initial plan was, we're just gonna, like, imprison them forever. Right,
that's true. That's a good point. It could be that Lenin had to change his mind, and then, but he can't actually come out and reverse his decision. He just has to
have someone else give the order. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's something I would like to know more about as well. See, it's endlessly intriguing, and probably in that train wreck sort of way where this is so horrible you can't look away.
Right. Isn't that funny with history, how you can maybe come to a conclusion, but because of that conclusion, there's like 3 more doors that have opened.
Yes.
After you just went down one, and you're like, oh my God, I answered a question, but I received more questions than I answered. I hate that. I love it and hate it at the same time.
And there are just certain things that we, at this point, with our current technology at least, will never know. Like when you were doing the episode last week on Alexander's tomb, I really was like, just rip up the freaking skyrise. Just rip it up.
Rip it up. And then also in, what is it, St. Matthew's?
Yeah, just get the bones out. Do the DNA testing.
Yeah, exactly. And also you could just tell, so Alexander got like stabbed in the leg on his Indian campaign at the very end.
You're right.
So you, like with a spear. And
it would have hit the bone.
It would have hit the bone, and it would leave a specific mark. And that's all we would need to do is look at both of his legs. I don't remember which one. We even, I think, know which leg it was.
Yeah.
So you just need to look at that leg. Be safe, look at the other leg. That's all you need to do.
This is actually a sub-point to my point. There are certain things that we could know.
Yeah.
But for stupid reasons, we don't know. You're right. That's more infuriating.
It's so unbelievably infuriating.
But that wraps it up this week, weirdos. Thank you for listening to us ramble, and I'm sorry we giggled so much. It ended up being more absurd and funny than I thought it was. And we hope that you enjoy this series of historical mysteries as much as we are.
Yes. And weirdos, you know the drill by now. If you're not following us on Instagram, what are you doing? Go ahead, do that right now. Also, if you're listening on Spotify specifically, you can go ahead and leave a review, definitely. But also, you can leave a comment on this week's episode. Let us know what you guys think.
If you have any insights, if you've heard anything else, or just thoughts on any part of this really wild, really weird episode, we love reading those Spotify comments.
Absolutely.
So please share.
Yeah, this was a wild ride of an episode, so I'm really curious to see what you guys say.
Yeah. And until next time, weirdos.
Until next time, adios.